I've never done whole hearts.
Well, they take little tiny pieces.
There won't even be a scar.
I think I found the problem.
Oh, come on, you're the doctor.
Everyone, lights out and quiet.
Greetings, wayward movie watchers. Welcome back once again to the Media Morgue, your one-stop shop for movie news and reviews. My name is Paul Atreides, first of his name, long may he reign, and I'm joined by...
I'm a silly space witch.
The silly space witch.
I'm the Messiah.
and the Lord himself. Yes, today, if you couldn't tell, we are talking about Dune, the latest attempt at recreating Frank Herbert's novel.
The third attempt.
Yes, and this time by Denis Villeneuve, and then we'll be getting into the world of Alejandro Jodorowsky in the second half with The Holy Mountain and a documentary about his attempt to recreate Dune that never really saw the light of day.
Crazy ideas.
Yeah, but of course, before the reviews, we have the news. So what's the latest, folks? A lot has happened.
Listen, I just want to kind of shit on David Gordon Green for a bit.
He's sitting right here next to us. So
I would say this to his face because you know what? This feels like when a friend like falls off because I wanted like the best for him. He used to do these like stoner comedies. He did Pineapple Express, which is a movie I love. Yeah. I mean, when I was a kid, me and my brothers would sit around and watch Pineapple Express. Yeah. I loved that movie. And I always think it's interesting when a comedian ventures over into horror. We're going to be getting deeper into this. On the next episode, we're going to be having a Halloween spooktacular, the adventures of Michael Myers throughout his many timelines. But basically, he had some small success with the 2018 Halloween movie, and then he's kind of fallen off with the new one. Halloween Kills has a lot of problems. I'm not going to get into them
we'll
here.
We'll talk about it next week.
He's like the J.J. Abrams of horror right now. They gave him a new Exorcist trilogy where he's going to do what he did with Halloween, bring back all the actors from the original Exorcist.
Which doesn't even really make any sense.
No, it doesn't at all.
For the context of The Exorcist.
It doesn't at all.
Which is a movie that doesn't need a sequel but has 500 of them. You know, Halloween also doesn't need a sequel. But
like, what are they going to do? Pazuzu's been like waiting around for 40 years.
Pazuzu is old. Yeah. He's going to come back Michael Myers style.
Right.
That's all I can really, because like, why are you going to bring back all these actors unless the exact same thing happens? Like Linda Blair just becomes possessed again. But you know what? It doesn't matter. He's also doing a Hellraiser show. Hellraiser has a few things going on right now, but Halloween Kills is really, he's starting to show his lack of imagination, his kind of lack of tact. So
I'm excited to listen to Dan tear apart every person that isn't John Carpenter next time we talk.
I'll do it.
I don't know. I enjoy the first Halloween movie by David Gordon Green.
I do too.
It's very not John Carpenter. It's not even playing John Carpenter's like hits. It's just a different approach to that world.
And it feels like a stoner comedy.
It does.
But it's a good mix because the rest of it feels pretty dark and elemental.
And I've yet to see the Halloween Kills
is full on stoner comedy.
But I have seen the moment where that Dan put into the chat where a woman is approaching with a firearm.
It is very stupid.
And Michael Myers kicks the door and she shoots herself through the head.
All I'm going to say is Halloween fans kind of suck now because they've gaslit themselves into thinking that this has always been like a dumb thing where it's just about a guy going around killing people. They're kind of selling themselves short. Because I think if you're really a Carpenter fan, you know that's not really... the point.
Well, you know what's wild, Dan, and we're going to get into this a lot next time we talk. Movie Bob, who's a YouTuber I really dig, talked about the fact that the reason Halloween, the original, works is because you know nothing about Michael Myers. Right. You know, literally, there's no mythology. It's structuralist, and that's why it works. And he was like, it actually, the more you know about him and the more mythology you try to pack on to him and Laurie, the less interesting they get because they weren't created to be mythological figures.
And the David Gordon Green stuff is falling into a weird place where he doesn't want to really get into why Michael does what he does. They add some lore, but it's mostly Michael lumbering around, slashing people, and Jamie Lee Curtis monologuing in a hospital bed. It is the most like not thought out Halloween movie maybe ever.
That's unfortunate.
It's on par with like Resurrection in terms of just no thought going into it.
Now, this Gordon Green Hellraiser
Fellow.
adaptation is also coming on the heels of an announcement of a series coming to Hulu, as I understand, with a different from a different director.
The
a different
Hulu
team.
thing is a movie, and the HBO thing is a show.
Oh, I see.
Oh, that's correct.
The
yeah.
HBO thing will probably be more successful.
I'm more excited for that, even though I think David Gordon Green's kind of a hack. The Clive Barker thing, I think, is just a remake of the original Hellraiser.
Interesting. Oh, so
Hulu's
the
feature
the Hulu
film.
thing
Yeah,
is-
this comes from dreadcentral.com. First up will be Hulu's feature film adaptation of Clive Barker's
Right.
The Hellbound Heart.
Oh, I see.
And Barker's also attached to produce.
He's a producer, yeah. He just got the rights back.
So that's the one he. That's why it's called Hell. It's probably gonna be called Hellbound Heart then, and not
Maybe.
Hellraiser.
Yeah.
Because if Clive Barker just got the rights back to that book, there's a chance that it's with all the horror things. It's like the rights get split, and it splits along the lines of names. Like Hellraiser goes back.
Particularly with horror, I
Yeah.
wonder what that is.
Friday
There's
the
always
13th.
some weird rights. Yeah, we talked about it last time. Friday, Child's Play.
But
What was
this seems to suggest, Wes, that Gordon Green's version is much earlier along in production anyway. That it actually started sooner than the other one. Go ahead.
Also, you can look this up. Every Texas Chainsaw installment is owned by a different studio.
That makes a lot
Yeah.
of sense.
Every studio buys the rights and then makes one movie and sells it off.
You know
And
what?
that's
It
how
might
it's
be
always
though,
been.
guys. It may be that these horror movies, especially these slashers, even though Hellraiser isn't really a slasher movie, needed funding very fast and would go and probably. I mean, this happened with Halloween. This is why the rights got tied up for a second.
That's true.
They just get producers who take chunks out of the pie, and then 30 years later, when it's a franchise, you're like, well, hold on, I have 30% of Halloween. You know what I mean?
That's what happened with Friday.
Yeah. So
They don't expect these things to take off that way, you think, and then as now we're in this era where things are getting rebooted and
Well,
revived.
franchises are more of a crutch than ever.
Yeah.
I mean, no one really wants to take a gamble on something that might be kind of expensive to produce and doesn't really have any brand recognition,
Yeah.
and isn't tied to anything else.
Yeah, well put. Wes, before we started recording, you played for us the trailer for Michael Bay's next flick.
Ambulance.
Ambulance.
This is going to be real short, guys.
I noticed that the L and the A are like the LA are
guys,
lit up.
Michael Bay. I was just telling Dan this when I forced him to watch this trailer on my couch. Michael Bay,
liked it.
if nothing else, has just a distinct visual style.
You never have like a bad time
No.
watching his movies. They're just kind of forgettable and kind of over the top.
Someone was like on Letterboxd reviewing, like, I think it was like Pain and Gain or whatever, one of his movies. It was like,
They're jock movies.
they're jock movies, and they're like, the reviewer was like, Michael Bay hates humanity, and if you're okay with that, then you'll love his movies. You know what I mean? And I genuinely think as a stylistic director, Michael Bay has some incredible moments. Like, I think Bad Boys 2 is an amazingly well put together film, even if the elements inside may not. I mean, I love
It's pretty funny.
It's pretty funny. But like those Transformers movies visually look great,
Stunning.
Everything else,
As far as the effects,
Yeah.
as far as
Dan, think about how real those Transformers look.
The second one is fucking like
Yeah,
racist.
Yes.
Oh,
that's-
yeah.
Well, when
that's unrelated.
when you said like his movies are never really bad, I immediately thought
Revenge of
about
the
that second
Fallen
one.
is bad.
That's a pretty tough one because
No, did I say they're not bad?
Didn't you-
I said they're not entertaining.
okay, maybe that's what
You
it was.
can
Yes.
sit there and like laugh with friends
Yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff.
But Dan, think about how good the Transformers, like the physical Transformers,
no,
look
they
in those
look
movies,
good.
And wasn't
versus
the-
how bad robots look in the MCU.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's true.
And wasn't that first Transformers movie that was pre Iron Man, right? Was it or
Yeah,
no?
it was
as a
07. It was
CGI
07.
sizzle reel,
Yeah.
pretty good.
I mean, but as a movie that literally shows you that Transformers have testicles, which is what happens in the second one.
Weren't they
Yes.
wrecking balls?
Yeah.
And then John Turturro, incredible, famed, acclaimed character actor, John Turturro has to say, "I am directly underneath the creature's
balls.
scrotum."
and then Megan Fox is like, why am I in this movie?
Yeah, but Ambulance.
Ambulance has Yahya Abdul-Mateen and Jake Gyllenhaal. Jake Gyllenhaal is really playing a Michael Bay
A man who
protagonist.
does not shower.
Do you-
I wonder if he got home after this shoot every day with all the sweat he's caked in throughout the trailer and just, I'm cool with this.
I
Kinda
think
wiped
he
it off
said.
and
I
went to
think what
bed.
Jake Gyllenhaal literally said was, "I know Jake Gyllenhaal listens to this podcast.
He's a number one fan.
He's a number one fan. He bought all the T-shirts. He said that if he can see dirt on himself, then he'll shower.
Then I'll shower.
How dirty do you have to be to,
Yeah,
to
facts.
see it on yourself?
But then I started looking up like pictures of him, and he kind of looks
like he
little
doesn't
greasy,
shower?
Yeah.
A little,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I
Some natural
I
hair
understand.
product.
I understand that in this movie, he and Yaya are like foster brothers or something. Like they grew up.
Oh, you got that from the trailer?
I thought that's what from the 30 seconds I watched before I skipped it on YouTube the other night.
I thought they were just buddy cops.
Me too.
It seemed like they have some sort of at least we grew up together kind of dynamic.
Possible.
And now he's like a veteran who, you know, it's one of those movies where it's about how America doesn't care about soldiers after they're not on, you know,
Which
the
is
battlefield.
Michael Bay's.
Yeah,
one
that's his
of
bread and butter.
One of his themes. Yeah.
And
Well, I guess that's a valid theme.
Sure.
The only thing with me is that's always in kind of douchey movies.
yeah, I didn't see that Benghazi movie he did,
He.
but with John Krasinski.
Michael Bay literally that is probably his chief theme in his movies.
Yeah.
Like no joke. Like even the
Militarism.
Transformers are soldiers. Like we're not even like I'm
Those
not
are
even making
fucking
a joke.
dudes rock movies.
I'm not even.
All
Dan,
around.
I'm not even joking. The Transformers are soldiers.
Yeah.
They can only function. Bumblebee
They're
cannot
veterans
function
of
in
Cybertron.
suburban life.
Yeah.
He can only function when he's blowing
Doesn't
someone's head
Revenge of the
off.
Fallen open with like a big war on Cybertron
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
being all like war
Yeah,
torn
and then
having
and
to
it
flee?
cuts and Bumblebee is like a dog
Yeah,
living in the.
I don't remember that.
He's like living in the thing.
Yeah.
And then like Shia LaBeouf gets attacked and he like jumps out of the
Yeah, yeah.
transforms. This movie's gonna be bad.
That
but
was
we
a
will
great
be
synopsis. Bumblebee's a dog. He's living in the thing. Shia LaBeouf jumps out of a thing and does a flip.
This movie's going to be bad. We will be reviewing it on the Medium Morgue.
Okay, sure.
can't wait. Speaking of trailers, another thing that popped up that really grinded my gears. And I'm sorry, Wes, if this doesn't matter to you, but the Uncharted.
Holy shit!
Oh no, I watched the trailer.
I so thought you were about to just casually mention the Alec Baldwin thing. I thought that's it. Sorry if this grinds your gears, but murder.
So the trailer for the Uncharted film starring Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg dropped this weekend. And before
looks
we get
great.
into
Let's say nice things.
It looks
Let's all
great.
say one nice thing.
I
You ready?
love that Tom Holland knows how to shave his beard.
Yeah.
I don't know if he can grow hair there, but if he can, he's really shaving well. He looks like a little
no,
baby.
He's shaving all the time.
I like that it has Antonio Banderas.
Does it?
It does. He's the villain.
Where? What?
Yeah, he pops up for like half a second.
No,
Antonio
I didn't see
Banderas is like, he did Pain and Glory and was like, that is my prestige movie for the next 10 years. I will take whatever money you have.
All right, I know I recommended this saying nice things thing, but I'm
But
still
you're not.
kind of thinking here.
While you think, Dan,
Maybe
let
the
me.
dead air is
I was going to say, let me give some context before we rip this thing apart as to how long this movie's been in
For like a
production.
decade,
This
right?
movie's gone through 6 directors.
And Wahlberg was supposed to play
It's
Nathan
been
Drake.
long enough that
was this
Wahlberg was
greenlit
supposed to be
before,
Nathan
like,
Drake.
Nathan Drake.
Was this greenlit like around the time the first game came out?
No.
2008.
Yeah, I remember. You know
So-
how I remember this? Remember Jeremy Jans, the YouTube movie critic?
Yeah.
One of his first videos was about how Wahlberg was cast in the Uncharted.
How long ago was that?
09?
Really?
Yeah. I'm reading this now from filmstories.co. The development on this started in 2000. It uses the word bizarre. What's bizarre is development started back in 2008, and now in 2020, the film has just lost its 6th director. This was January 6th last year. David O. Russell,
So
Neil
who shot
Berger,
this?
Seth Gordon, Sean Levy, Dan Trachtenberg, and Travis Knight.
Dan Trachtenberg.
What would that have been?
That's a name.
Let's Sean Levy.
Of Cheaper by the Dozen fame.
Yeah, the storyline shifted into a different direction. The screenwriter was brought in to craft a new script at the start of 2018, while Uncharted came to a standstill once again. Fan favorite choice, Nathan Fillion. Okay, so this is when Sean Levy was attached. This is when Nathan Fillion dropped his fan film.
Wasn't the fan film by a filmmaker who was trying to like have his name in the cards for this? Like, was that the story?
Maybe. I didn't remember that. I just remembered it was like
It was like a proof
Fillion
of
wanted to
concept
do-
for
what
for
he
the
would have
lead and
done.
the
Yeah.
director,
I mean, and you know, obviously, like I was saying in the chat, like Nathan Fillion. If
For a fan film, that's pretty good.
yeah, it was well produced.
liking
If Nathan Fillion were a bit younger and you know a bit more spry, he'd be perfect, obviously. But the casting of
How old is
Old
Drake
Man.
in Drake's Fortune? The first.
that's the first one. I mean, I assume he's in like his early 30s. He's supposed to be like middle aged by
Like Tom
Deep Sand,
Holland. Tom
of
Holland
course.
is in his early
Fillion's
30s.
no, okay, you're right. He is. Fillion's kind of stocky. I think if he just maybe slimmed down,
He looked a little puffy, and
he
yeah.
could have done it.
I mean, isn't that character modeled after Fillion?
It looks like
Yeah.
It looks
Yeah.
exactly like
Yeah,
him.
that was
It
always
looks
the thing.
like
They
him
got
in, Firefly.
Nolan North to voice him because Nolan North kind of has that same.
Because Nolan North does all of Nathan Fillion's characters.
He has like a relatable, like charismatic loser bravado.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That was back. Nathan Fillion, God bless him, really missed a few. Not missed, but like he was really being fan cast as a lot of like superheroes and video game characters in the early 2010s. Is like Hal Jordan.
I saw him as Superman in a couple months.
That would have been interesting.
Yeah.
That would have been interesting. But
I don't
because
think anyone dislikes Nathan Fillion.
no, I think he's very
think
charming.
liked all around.
But I think what happened was when he was at his like geek peak, like during Dr. Horrible,
Yeah.
he
and everyone loves to say that they watched Firefly before it was canceled.
I didn't watch.
Such
I'll
big
be honest, I didn't watch
fans.
Firefly, and I will not be watching Firefly. But when he was at his peak, the MCU was just starting up. You know,
Yeah.
DC was in limbo. Like there weren't a lot of projects for him to be slotted into.
Right.
He
I'm
always
sure
cameos and stuff.
he's in
I think
Guardians.
he
He's in
cameos-
Guardians.
Yeah, I think he cameos in Suicide Squad.
He is. He's the guy with the arm detached.
Oh,
I
yes.
think if the MCU had started 5 years earlier and it survived, I think he would.
Detachable,
I think he
yeah.
would have been Hawkeye or or Ant-Man or something. You know what I mean? Like he would have been cast as a major player. I think.
Yeah,
The way that
yeah.
he
You
wasn't.
said Hawkeye and Ant-Man, and then you said
Major player.
Well, I mean,
But they are pretty-
Ant-Man's a major player.
now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I mean Hawkeye, obviously spends that entire first movie under mind control, but then by the second one he's pretty important.
By
But
the second one, they act like he was always front
he
and
was-
center. Which is really fun.
he's the moral center of the Avengers all of a sudden. But as far as this movie, yeah, I mean, as soon as they announced that Tom Holland was attached, I lost all interest.
Yeah.
I've always been someone who
He
thinks
looks 14.
yeah, and I've said this to you, Dan, and a bunch of our friends before, but I think when you have a video game franchise that prides itself on being cinematic,
Yeah.
removing the element of control from it makes it moot. Like if you're just going to turn it into a real movie, then what's the point of it at all? Like
the only
Uncharted
one-
is fun because you feel like you're playing
A movie.
through a movie.
If
the
you
only
want to
one-
watch an Uncharted movie, watch Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah.
The only one I could think, and you guys could disagree with me about this, the only one I could think would have cinematic potential, and I think it would be for a TV show, not a movie, is God of War, just because of the
Sure,
density
yeah.
of that mythology.
Yeah.
I think you could turn that into a television show. But I otherwise, Assassin's Creed, why does Assassin's Creed need a movie? Like,
Isn't Halo being adapted?
it is. Why?
Mario is being adapted with,
Well,
with that
friend of
famous
the show.
Italian.
Friend of the show, Chris Pratt. Yeah.
Chris Pratt, was that a joke headline where they were like,
No, that was real.
where he
He's
was
not
like,
Italian
he's
anymore.
not
He's
Italian.
normal now.
He's a normal person.
Yeah, I like to think that we like to rip on Chris Pratt for being Republican on this show, and I like to think that he saw Mario's design and said, "Hey, red and blue."
A red hat with an M on it, like MAGA. Wow.
It's like a
Mario's
real
hat's
American
gonna be a
patriot.
MAGA hat, yeah.
Chris Pratt went into that little voting booth in 2016, voted for Trump, and then walked straight to the Guardians of the Galaxy set right after. So
Yeah.
hey,
and
it
I
is what
mean,
it is.
listen, like this, obviously, it is very distracting in this age of hyper celebrity that, like, when you see the same actors popping up in different properties, it's hard to not relate it to other things. So I'm looking at this, and it looks like Peter Parker.
It does.
Not only because like he hasn't changed anything about his face, but also like even his voice. He's not
His
doing any
American
kind of
voice
different
is high.
American.
His American voice is
Yeah.
high.
So it's
I'm still thinking about the fact that Chris Pratt voted for Trump and then made out with Zoe Saldana. At the same time.
seems like it seems wrong, doesn't it? Perverse.
Well, but Justin, to your point, I mean, not to like jump ahead, but like I was watching Zendaya and Dune, and I really thought I was going to be distracted, and maybe it's because she's in the movie for a total of 2.5 seconds. Distracted, but
Distracted
I
how?
thought I was going to be distracted in that, not distracted because she's beautiful, but distracted because Zendaya is known for being in Euphoria and Spider-Man. But I wasn't. Like I was.
No.
She's a pretty. I mean, we haven't seen her in a truly transformative role yet, but she is dynamic enough for me to see her in different roles. Tom Holland, unfortunately, so far, doesn't really have that ability for me.
Yeah, he hasn't really been stretched yet.
Yeah.
I saw him as kind of like a pickup for Spider-Man who maybe would not have much success outside of that because he does just kind of seem like I don't like I saw him as Peter Parker, but I don't really see him as anything else. I definitely don't see him as Nathan Drake.
Yeah. He's not
I don't-
swaggering.
I don't see him as a vet either. I mean, I haven't seen that movie Cherry, but like he's like a vet with PTSD.
Apparently, his
stuff.
performance is good in that. I don't believe it.
He's pretty good in that Robert Pattinson movie where he's the pastor.
Devil All the Time.
He's good in that Saoirse Ronan movie that no one's seen that takes place during the apocalypse. Where Saoirse Ronan, I swear to God, it's called "This Is Where I Am Now." It's like his.
He's in another apocalypse.
It's like his.
movie.
It's like his
Walking.
movie before. He was even in the running for Spider-Man, and he plays her cousin, but she also sleeps with another cousin that she has. But he's like a secondary character, and his big moment is that he dies.
When he was cast, like I remember being like, okay, I can see it, but I never in a million years thought he would be one of those actors that gets every role. That's very strange.
It's because the Disney machine is big, and I think
he's also just not really like a movie star charismatically or like.
But the thing,
he's not super handsome.
Well, we talked about it before. We're dumping on Tom Holland. We talked about it before, but the MCU has destroyed movie stardom. Like, and the MCU has completely destroyed what we think of as movie stardom. Like, if I'm thinking about movie stars that have emerged in the last 10 years, I'm thinking of only people like
Hemsworth,
Oscar
Evans,
Isaac.
Right.
And I'm talking like
but
independent.
they kind of make sense. They have that charisma. Tom Holland doesn't. It doesn't make sense that he's getting every movie now.
It's because he's a young guy.
Yeah, I think this will come up more in the Dune conversation, but there are the faces of new Hollywood, and Tom Holland is
Chalamet
one of those
kinda makes
faces.
sense.
What else? Trailer wise, obviously Fandom was 2 weeks ago. By the time
I just
y'all
called
hear
Tom
this.
Holland ugly for like 5 minutes straight.
You know who isn't ugly? You guys are gonna
Robert
have to cut this.
Pattinson. Robert Pattinson.
I was gonna say Zoe Kravitz.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I cannot believe I forgot Zoe Kravitz's name for a millisecond.
No, when you look at her, you might forget everything, especially in this trailer.
Certainly, Batman is like this is the first time I've seen a Batman movie since Returns where he's just completely
This
like,
is the first
I
time
know
I've
you do
seen a
crime.
Batman
I know
movie.
you do crime, but you're very hot. You know what I mean?
He's immobilized by her sexiness in this trailer.
The
for
Batman
sure.
looks good. I mean,
Yeah,
I
it
think
does.
I love that shot where he's walking towards the
Upside
camera,
down?
upside
Oh,
down.
great
That's a
shot.
nice Tyler
I
Park
think
reveal.
there's two major red flags I have. One is an internet problem, which is that everybody's looking for the secret villain in it. It's like, guys, it's just the Riddler. Just let it be the Riddler. Who cares? And the other thing is that
There's an internet problem where whenever a trailer comes
Yes,
out
I
for like a massive property,
I know.
people just dig into it too much to where like you can't really enjoy it. We're so quick to call things stupid, especially like franchise stuff like
Yeah.
Batman. People don't seem to like that riddle told at the very end. What's black and blue and dead all over
I like
you,
that.
but it's not like a riddle, it's just like a threat.
Yeah.
You know, like he's not telling, obviously it's just a threat. People are like, why are the Riddler's riddles so stupid?
Also,
in this
but
one?
this comes into my hit the mic. This brings in my second like fear with the Batman, a movie that I think looks really good and hopefully is really good, is that we've gotten about 15 years of uber dark Batman movies to counterbalance the Schumacher movies.
This is like right in between,
And this seems to be a little bit more comic booky,
but still Nolan.
but still Nolan-y. And my fear is that it will, in the way Reeves is talking about it, it seems like he's a little bit like, my Batman's edgy. And I'm like, guys, at the end of the day, it's Batman.
It's Batman.
It's Batman. Like, you know what I mean?
But I agree with this approach where it's comic booky and like he's driving around in a muscle car instead of like a big
Tank.
stupid tank. Yeah,
That was always dumb. That was always super dumb.
I mean, the whole like Pattinson being a sociopath thing is, we'll have to see where it goes. But I like the combo of very comic booky and kind of dark. I mean, I think it works. I think it's a winning combination.
I don't mind a Batman story investigating Batman as a mentally disturbed person because I think he is.
You just need to see if they make that, darker than it like
needs to be, which is where I think it's I mean, the dude is like every scene where he's punching someone, he's doing it for 5 minutes, and it's like
And Catwoman is
the
like,
actual
relax.
city of Gotham was shot in like London and stuff, and like that makes me think it's going to be closer to actual like Art Deco meets Gothic like aesthetic that we see in like the Bob Kane designs.
Burton.
Sure.
But I agree with you. I mean, I think it's a balance, right? Like I think Pattinson talks about reading the Tom King run as he was on set, which is all about, that run is all about the fact that Batman is mentally disturbed and probably has deeper mental issues. But that run also like takes a 3 issue break to talk about Booster Gold and Batman going on an adventure. You know what I mean? Like there's a way to do Batman is disturbed and needs help. Also, Batman is a comic book character that beats up Penguin people. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think.
Speaking of Penguin, Colin Farrell, dude.
Oh
looks
my god!
fantastic.
Hey, take it easy,
easy.
sweetheart.
I got you.
It does feel Burton-y to me, which I think is the direction to go. Burton, I think, has out of all the Batman directors the ability to strike the balance between gothic and like campy. Like
For kids.
Yeah, I mean, Returns goes pretty off the rails in a good way, but like I don't know. I like Nolan's movies, but I think for this next spell, I wouldn't mind seeing Man-Bat or seeing Mr. Freeze.
Yeah,
you know
that's
what I mean?
the thing. I mean, these are. We were talking about that when I think the first teaser came out a few months ago.
No, it was a year ago.
Oh,
Yeah, because of
It was a
that's
year
right.
ago.
Yeah, but I was saying like this seems like a dope universe to introduce some of the creepier but also slightly funnier Batman villains, like your Man-Bat, your Solomon Grundys.
I like that Gotham is always so rain-slicked in this. I mean, every time we see Gotham, whether it be just an
wet.
establishing shot, it's wet, it's rainy, it feels like the Arkham.
Nolan's was very
Gotham.
like. Well, actually, you know what's weird is that
Nolan's was industrial.
No, yes, that's exactly
in
what it
Batman
was.
Begins, the Gotham of Batman Begins is completely different from the other two movies.
Definitely.
It's a lot
Batman
more.
Begins is comic booky as fuck.
Yeah, and I really
He
appreciate
summons
that
the
movie.
bats.
And he
Yeah, I
doesn't
love
do
that
the
movie.
gravelly voices badly in Batman Begins.
No, he's doing more of a Keaton thing.
He's doing-
and
he's
then
like- he-
then
doesn't
his
he-
throat cancer comes in later.
He like lost his voice 4 times.
I'm sure.
But no, I feel like we're gonna get, and I also think Reeves wants to either reinvent villains we've seen on screen before or do new villains. And if he wants to do new villains, I mean, he has a long roster to pick from. Like, I think the only person that's been really taken off his board, thank
Joker.
God, is Joker and probably
I don't
Black.
think we ever
and
need
probably,
to mention the Joker.
No, and Black Mask probably.
Yeah.
Because we just got Black Mask. But honestly, if
That
Pattinson's
Black Mask was so shit. Dude.
Stop it right now!
It was
I
so
love that Black
bad.
Mask.
Really?
And we'll talk about it later.
He just blows up. They blow him up.
Anyway, I think I would be perfectly happy if Reeves' Batman never mentions Joker, or if he's already put Joker in Arkham. And like it's like we dealt with the clown. And the clown people are on the street because Joker was running around before.
Power vacuum.
Is
and
that what that is?
I think that's what that is.
Okay.
I wouldn't mind if Joker's just in Arkham. We don't need to talk
Maybe
about
they're
it.
just
It's fine.
face paint guys.
They could be.
Maybe just face paints their thing.
That's a Batman Beyond thing. Where
I
people are
think
just running around.
in all those Arkham games, everyone's face is painted
Yeah.
like
That's true.
in accordance with
That's like
who
a
they are.
riot thing.
Yeah.
Interesting.
There's always guys with face paint.
Well, no Joker, please.
Yeah, please enough.
But maybe this dissonance between Pattinson's approach and Reeves' aesthetic approach will create something interesting. I hope
maybe.
that's what happens.
I think Pattinson.
Because I love that trailer. I love that fucking score.
The score is
dude.
great.
Oh, score is good.
Da, 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 da.
I watched it just today in Dune.
They
The
need to
shot where they
release just
flip.
the score.
I was watching it like an IMAX
Yeah,
of
yeah.
him walking towards
So
the camera
good.
in the red, and then the camera like the Batman logo comes
Yeah.
up.
You know what's interesting
it's
about
really
it?
great.
This is, I guess, the last thing I'll say because the score definitely jumps out. I like that they brought back the Nirvana, song, and then there's that hard switch where he's about to deck Penguin, and Penguin's like relax, and it switches into the score, and it sounds obviously very distinct from Zimmer's score while still being very like stentorian and gothic and it feels like you're watching that the animated series in a way. But it also kind of sounds like what Zimmer did for Batman v Superman. If you remember, there were hints of a Batman score in that was very like staccato, dun 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 dun. Every time he showed up, and when he's like,
That's a really aggressive Batman theme, the BVS one, because it is, and
Yeah.
it's so basic.
and when he smacks Superman over the head with a sink,
I guess the last thing I'll say about this Batman movie is it looks. I feel like people have been trying to adapt Year One, and Nolan kind of does it, but it looks more like Year One than I thought it was going to look.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to do Frank Miller. Every time a new filmmaker takes the reins, they just are adapting.
And they want to do Frank Miller, and I want more like. I wish people would do like Denny O'Neil or like Grant
70
Morrison.
years of comics, like so much stuff.
Yeah,
to
I hope he's more of a detective in this, and I
think he is.
There's that
That's what
scene
they're
where
going
he's standing in the middle of like a conspiracy chalk drawing on the floor, and he's like sins
there's
of
a
my
part
father,
where-
etc., etc.
And I hope he gets
There's
the
a part where Commissioner Gordon, like in the first trailer, like has him up against the wall because like he's
doing too much.
overstepping
Yeah.
the GCPD boundaries.
And I hope, and this is not going to happen, but man, if it happens, I'll start crying in the theater. I hope he gets the yellow
That'd be cool.
thing at the end.
It would look great.
Have we had
Not since Burden.
I know, but like, have we ever had that? You know how like we're doing this minimalism thing where it's just like
The wings?
the sharp like wings, like the very sharp logo. Have we ever had the logo itself, the actual bat, be bright yellow and the rest of it pitch black?
So that's
Like
the
a
design
sharp
for.
yellow bat?
It was just actually the Tim Fox, the new Batman, the Black Batman in the comics, has that design.
Lucius
it's
Fox's
all
son.
black and it's a yellow thing.
Oh, Dan, you wanted to talk about the GTA
GTA,
trilogy
bro,
getting
yeah,
remastered.
man. Look, the GTA trilogy, for you Rockstar aficionados out there, we all know that's GTA 3, Vice City, and San Andreas. Those games released within like a 3 to 4 year span on the PS2, and that's kind of Rockstar's holy trinity. I mean, that's what people come back to for like the bare bones open world run and gun experience. I mean, but they're so iconic. Vice City Vice City is Miami in the 80s. San Andreas is Compton in the 90s, and GTA 3 is New York in the early 2000s. Those cities in all three of those games each feel like very like front and center personalities and aesthetics, like their own characters. Yeah, and I mean, I have so much reverence for that trilogy. I would take one disc out and pop in another. I mean, I loved playing Vice City and then jumping over into San Andreas. So when I heard that they were going to do this remaster, I was like, is it going to be like a Resident Evil thing where they remake the game from the ground up? But no, I mean, it is the game, but they've kind of updated textures, and looks like there's some ray tracing in there, realistic weather effects. It's a new like light engine, so it'll be lit more like a more modern game, but it'll still have that like PS2 vibe.
Is there any portion of the GTA fan base so far as you've seen that's like upset that they aren't just doing the sixth game already?
I think that's everybody. I thought you were going to ask if they were upset that this isn't like a remake. I don't know if they are. I mean, I know that some people thought this would be like those games like in the new Rage engine that they used in Red Dead 2. But you can't really expect that. They like only leaked that this was happening like a couple months ago, and now we have like a trailer and stuff, so you couldn't really expect it to be like, I mean, GTA 6. As far as that goes, people have been pissed off about that for like 10 years. They wanted GTA 6 and they've been banking on GTA 5. So they said, you know what? We're going to go even further back and bank on GTA 3. Yeah. And they'll probably remaster 4 before we ever get to 6. 6 will be like a 2030 thing.
Yeah.
That's far away.
Damn.
I guess I wouldn't be surprised. We've talked before about how
it's the fan base's collective fault. I mean, we keep giving them money for 5.
Going online.
Because in online they added flying cars and jetpacks and fucking yachts. And
at least they're not starving you, really. Like the people who
there's content.
Play. Yeah.
There's content.
But you can imagine if there was a massive player strike, how that once you hit the pockets, it's always
going
to
really do a player strike.
Yeah, if you just decide to stop,
like?
Everyone just stops going online and playing a game for a certain amount of time. I mean, obviously gamers are famously hard to control, but
the people who still play GTA Online really play it. Like when I try and play GTA Online these days, I'll load in and someone in a flying car will blow me up
immediately.
So I go and spend real life money on a flying car so that I can fucking settle my beef with some guy who's flying around, and that ends up being my afternoon. And that's how they make money. I mean, your friend gets a flying car and won't stop fucking with you. You pay Rockstar because they make it like $20 million in-game dollars that you could never get from just playing missions. So you have to do the microtransactions. You have to pay for shark cards, is what they call them, and get your own flying car and have some dog fights. So that's how they get you. It's actually a foolproof system. Yeah, it's very very smart.
A lot of games have used it, but I think what makes microtransactions bearable is if the base game is entertaining. Like I think the reason it doesn't work for like Battlefront is because no one liked that game that much to begin with, so they're not going to pay additional money to.
If you like a game, you're going to spend money on it.
Hey, I've even spent money on some games I didn't like just because I wanted to feel something.
Right. Oh, dude, in Marvel's Avengers, I remember buying like Iron Man cosmetics. You would have to buy moves.
Yeah.
You have to buy special.
No one
animations
likes
and
that
stuff.
game.
It's.
No.
I've tried to give it. I did give it a new shot with the
you
Black
and me
Panther
played it
DLC.
once.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the Black Panther stuff is fun, but it's still the same game.
Right,
it's just like a different character in it. So anyway,
But I will be buying this GTA remake
Oh, I'm-
because I have so much nostalgia for the PS2 stuff.
Yeah.
The PS2 stuff is really iconic. I mean, San Andreas is probably the most memed game of all time. There are so many San Andreas memes.
Here we go again.
Oh shit! Here we go again, yeah.
I think on that note, we'll probably take our first break then, and come back finally to talk about Dune. Yeah, well, folks, welcome back. We're here to talk about Denis Villeneuve's Dune, which released just last weekend.
We jumped on this one. We're going to be reviewing movies that came out like last month moving forward, but this is like fresh off.
Yeah. It's star-studded. Villeneuve really wanted to push people going out to see it in the theater.
He was like, you're a fucking loser if you don't see it in the theater.
Well, we need to abolish IMAX cameras.
Yeah, so let's get into that.
We do, because first of all, they shoot in like a box
They
ratio.
do.
So you may as well be shooting on a Bolex, but like it's only to fill an IMAX screen where when you see it fill the screen, you don't even realize it's just a box.
Yeah.
Until it ends up on HBO Max, like Justice League. And you're
Right.
like,
Which is where I
this is
watched
a
it.
box. Yeah.
And
But the only way to see the full ratio is to pay the extra $20.
Listen, I love an IMAX movie. I wouldn't
I do
mind,
too.
seeing this, but I think you have to understand, regardless of the pandemic, it is the fate of all visual media to wind up on someone's TV screen. So you have to kind of prepare your movie for that, I think, especially a movie like this, which is meant to be a blockbuster.
If you watch Dune and it's wide, it is cropped.
I watched it on Dolby, and Dolby is not quite IMAX. It's a little shorter, so I know it was definitely cropped. It's pulled.
When I saw that Lincoln Square, it filled up the whole, and that's a box,
Yeah,
IMAX screen,
yeah.
and it took up the whole screen.
Now, that being said, I was just going to say, I think around the table, we're fans of Denis Villeneuve, more or less.
Yeah.
I'd say he's one of my favorite contemporary directors.
I think it's the trajectory of any kind of popular contemporary director to eventually garner detractors just because they don't like hearing
About him all the
names
time.
everywhere, I guess. Like every contemporary director is like kind of famous. There's people who hate them for like no reason.
For sure, but I think Villeneuve is his resume speaks for itself. His filmography.
I'll make a confession right here on the air. I've only seen Arrival.
Okay.
And I love
You haven't seen
Arrival.
Blade Runner?
No.
pretty good.
I really like Arrival.
That's a good Villeneuve movie to watch in advance of this.
Very
It
good,
is.
yeah.
Also aliens and stuff. So.
Yeah, and I mean, the reason that I think, just to get into initial impressions, I feel like when it comes to this movie, they got the right one. I think that Villeneuve, if he has nothing else, when it comes to his sci-fi, he has this incredible sense of scale.
The sets remind me of
visual
Blade
scale.
Runner.
Like, I love I'm a sucker for like, and you see this in comic books too, but like when you have like one thing that's really big and then you have like a bunch of
Splash
tiny
page.
little,
Right,
yeah, like, and that's he just shoots splash pages.
He
You know what I
does,
mean?
he does.
So all these massive spaceships, and then like, and I mean, obviously, like Danny was just saying, when you're watching it I watched it on my iPad on HBO Max. So like, I think part of it kind of enhanced that because the spaceships are super big and the people are literal Tic Tacs.
Yeah.
But also then like you do I felt that while the composition was cool, some of the lighting struggled. Like there were scenes that were just pitch black.
Where Timmy Chalamet was in the dark.
Yeah, just pitch black.
Speaking of directors who don't like seeing movies outside of a theater,
Now, if you're playing the movie on a telephone, you will never in a trillion years experience the film. You'll think you have experienced it, but you'll be cheated. It's such a sadness that you think you've seen a film on your fucking telephone. Get real.
get real.
I'd actually like to keep that in. We won't get cease and desist for
It
that.
was relevant.
But yeah, so generally I thought that it looked really cool. I mean, this was my first experience with Dune at all. I'd only heard about it. I enjoyed some of the themes that it seems to be bringing up, and we can unpack that later on. But this movie essentially is 2.5 hours of world building. It is a part one. It's very much a part one.
Every attempt at adapting Dune falls into the exposition.
But I guess what's different is that this one isn't trying to be all of Dune in one movie, right? Like before, they were trying to cram all of that.
In a lot of ways, the exposition in this one is worse than the exposition in the Lynch one.
Interesting.
The Lynch one actually opens with narration from the Emperor's daughter, who kind of just catches us up on what Arrakis is and who the Fremen are. The Villeneuve one kind of disperses that throughout like the first hour or so,
And does little nature documentaries that it's like the Fremen walk in a crip walk fashion to escape.
The book does the exact same thing, by the way.
Yeah.
Both of the film adaptations kind of do the exact same thing when they adapt certain scenes, like the dialogue when Paul is training with the Josh Brolin character. I think that's Duncan. No, that's not
Duncan is Jason Momoa.
I forget the name of that character, but Lynch and Villeneuve adapted that scene the exact same way.
Yeah.
They also adapted the hand in the box scene the same way.
Yeah.
The
I remember seeing someone cut together Lynch's
footage
to the
Dune
trailer, and it's the same exact framing, same everything.
Yeah. What were you just saw it?
I
Wes
just
came from seeing
I
it.
literally an hour ago saw it. It's a very pretty movie.
Yes.
It's very, very pretty. I love the way Villeneuve just imagines a sci-fi world to be completely different from our world. Like the spaceships look like bugs. The way that Harkonnen floats around with that long cape.
The ships are like cones.
They're so. I think as a visual stylist, Villeneuve and the armor that Atreides have, I think is amazing. I think everybody in the movie is beautiful. The movie itself, I was like, okay.
I don't think it's boring. I think the world building is signature enough to kind of like keep me engaged.
I don't mean it's boring. I mean I was like underwhelmed by the story itself.
Sure.
Dune isn't for everyone.
It's not.
Weird story.
I'm going to say something. I want you guys to know, and she will be listening to this. The person I went to go see this with, when I walked out and she loved it, I said that movie is kind of like if you had a better visual director doing the Star Wars prequels. And I'm sorry to say that on air, but
I don't agree with that at all.
That's okay. It's okay. You guys don't have to agree with it. It's much better looking than the Star Wars prequels.
This movie never annoyed me. I never felt like it was
I don't mean
stupid.
that. I mean the politicking,
Yes.
the constant
Okay, sure.
the constant exposition dumps. I just was underwhelmed. I was underwhelmed by the movie.
I mean, okay.
I was underwhelmed.
Do not read the book then, because the book is all politics.
Also, what
It's
does Paul
all
want?
Space politics.
What does Paul want?
Well, Paul's kind of just drags there.
Other than to be Jesus.
Then the more he's there, the more visions he has about his future. And
But what does he
life.
want? But what does he want? What does Paul want?
It's
What
not
does
clear.
Paul want?
He
wants to avenge his father's memory.
That happens 3/4 into the movie.
I don't know.
I'll say this. We'll crack the spoiler egg now. So
It doesn't help that Tim Chalamet doesn't really have that much charisma. He's very pretty.
He's very pretty. I
let's
agree.
talk about it because
he's blank registered the whole movie.
I know.
I was not
He's
impressed by
blank
him
even
in this
when
movie.
we flash forward to him being the Messiah. Like, do you remember there's that long shot of him fighting the guy, then his mask comes up, and he has the blue eyes, but
and
he's
his
just like
CG and his CGI'd face into the. Hey, he
Stone
has.
face,
Look, it's very easy to hate on Timothy Chalamet because he's the number one young movie star
And
right
he's
now.
everywhere,
I
I don't hate him, by the way.
There's been performances where I thought he was good. I think he's really good in Little Women. I think he's good in
Call Me
Lady
by Your
Bird.
Name is fucking great.
I think he is. I'm sorry, Justin. I think he is incredibly blank this whole movie.
Yeah, no, you're right. You would be
No,
right.
I agree. I was gonna say, and the moment that it clicked for me, I mean, I think I
Paul
was kind of.
Atreides is not the most compelling character.
But you
No,
couldn't
but
get
sometimes-
him compelling.
sometimes
I'm only
you
like
fall
100
into-
something pages into the Frank Herbert piece, but Paul's just kind of a he's an everyman self-insert.
He's Luke
not that
Skywalker.
strong
I get it.
character.
He's Luke.
He's what Luke Skywalker was literally
But
modeled
Luke
after.
Skywalker, at least, maybe not in that first movie, but he's flawed. You know what I mean? He has flaws. He has wants. And what does Paul want? Nothing. You know what I mean?
If I can
I'm sorry, Justin.
interject,
Please.
So as far as the performance, and it is, I think part of it is the character, because this is sort of a, it's a syndrome, I think, when you have the chosen one archetype.
It's
like,
the white savior thing.
Oh, we're gonna get into that.
100%.
And Dune is actually historically like one of the first like major. White
This is Dances with Wolves, but we'll get back to that.
Yeah, but I was just gonna say,
it predates Lawrence of Arabia and like.
But
all
it
that
is
stuff.
Lawrence in Arabia because it literally.
But it predates it.
Yeah, it is. I'm sorry, Justin. We keep interrupting.
I was just going to say that as far as the performance, I think I was waiting for most of the movie to see him kind of like click in. And the moment that it hit,
Blank slate.
the moment that it hit for me that like I didn't buy into him is when he sees this woman who has been in his dreams for however long in real life in front of him, and he's just like, oh, what's up? I'm like, this is the person.
By the way, that moment in the Lynch one is really good. That moment in the Lynch
sure
one
it
where
was.
he sees her from his dreams is actually like a powerful moment.
It should
I'm
be.
sure because
That gave me chills. Lynch gets a few things right in his version. I just have to say, it's
be.
not all bad.
I mean,
I'm sure it is. I was waiting because that is the only thing powering. He's literally like, Dad, I'm willing to go to that planet early, Arrakis early,
girl.
to chase tail. And when he sees Zendaya, it's Zendaya. Like, I understand that in the context of the movie, it's not Zendaya, but in the context of the movie, it's also a beautiful woman.
Right.
And he's like, oh.
And it's the woman, and it's not just any beautiful woman. It's the woman that he's been seeing in his dreams for however long. So it's like, that was like, can you give me something, dude? But that being said, thematically, what's interesting about this movie is that, you know, I am interested in how it tackles religion, or how it seems to be kind of dealing with religion. In a way, it's like the Space Crusades.
It really is.
What it
That's
is.
a good way to think about it.
I also wondered, I mean, this is set in like the year 10,149 or something. And so obviously humanity has colonized space.
There's still colonialism, yeah.
Well, yeah, but what seems cool from the story standpoint is that like there aren't that many aliens. It just seems like humans have spread out and they've changed
And
depending
they've
on where they
evolved.
live.
And they've evolved.
And it also seems like they're like different ethnic groups have colonized different planets. So obviously, like I think Arrakis has always been sort of like this Afghanistan, or it gained an Afghanistan.
I think
association.
in the book, Dan, tell me if I'm wrong. In the book, it's supposed to be the Middle East. Like,
No, it is, yeah.
It is.
Well, the book is kind of an allegory for the Middle East at the end of World War One.
Mm-hmm.
You don't really have anyone to root for. Paul is actually kind of a not likable character.
I've heard that, and I wish they would have
but
done
that's
it.
intentional. Well, I mean,
He's but he's still
kinda do it.
positioned as the hero of the movie,
Right.
And the movie feels weird to me. The politics of the movie are weird to me.
I think Villeneuve is open to the possibility of us not liking Paul.
That's
I don't
possible.
think
Maybe
he's
that's why he's so blank.
I don't think he's totally shut off to that.
That's okay. I wish he would have given us something. And I don't know if it's a directing thing or if it's the way Paul is written in this version. But Paul is just, I don't know how I'm supposed to feel about Paul at all. Like I just know that he's the main character and he's Jesus, which is the other issue.
The world of Dune around him is way more interesting.
It is, and like every time Momoa like cooks in this movie.
He's
like
doing something.
one of his best performances.
He's charismatic as
He's
shit.
so good in this movie. Of course, Oscar Isaac rocking his scenes from a marriage beard, amazing in the
Oscar
movie.
Isaac looks fucking sick.
He looks good.
He looks
good.
He is such like a refined older gentleman.
Yeah.
That he's really grown into that kind of archetype.
Dude.
Where like when you see him, he's just older and he's got like a graying beard, but he's so steamy.
Yeah.
And he's
when
such a
he's
presence.
laying back in the chair,
Yeah.
I was like, this is like the best looking guy on earth.
He's a good looking.
Talk about that's a dope scene too when he takes out that whole room. I mean, minus Harkonnen.
I love the scene where he's talking to the one Bene Gesserit woman who he had Paul with, and he's
his
like,
wife,
Rebecca
Lady Jessica.
Ferguson.
She's not his wife. He's saying I should
His concubine.
Should have married you.
I love that scene when they're in the Lynch one. They have that communication telepathically. They have a telepathic link in that one. Villeneuve kind of knocked out the telepathy. And there's no telepathy in the Villeneuve version.
No. But what is cool is
He replaced it with sign language.
Oh well, yes.
In the book and in the Lynch one, they have telepathy, but in this, they're using sign language.
Like one-handed sign language,
Which is cool.
which is interesting.
Yeah.
I appreciated the depiction of this of the voice, which of course Lucas would turn into the Jedi mind trick a few years later.
That's so true. That's so true.
But I like how
that's maybe the best scene where they're on the ship
drop
and
ship.
They use it to hijack the ship.
Yeah, what I thought was interesting about the depiction, it's sort of like the Kilgrave power, where when you tell someone to do something, they do it.
Purple Man.
Yeah, but I thought what was cool about how they depicted it was that the person who's being affected, like basically blacks out. They lose the time between hearing the order and doing the thing. So it's like when Paul comes to visit the grandma, evil grandma lady, and she tells him to kneel, he's just like suddenly zooming and kneeling in front of her, and it's like he didn't even have time to resist. I thought that was a cool depiction.
And I thought the way Villeneuve shoots the voice when she first says use your voice, I was like, what is he gonna deepen his, and it's literally like you just see his mouth moving.
That was dope.
And then another voice comes out.
That was cool,
which is cool. And I didn't even pick up that Lucas is freely stealing the Jedi mind trick from that. But
this one, by the way, easier. You don't have to do a little hand trick with it.
You don't have to do a little. The thing about it that was so interesting is that it's used. It's the one thing in the movie that I was tracking, that and Paul's skill with like sword fighting. Were the two things that I was tracking through the movie that I was like, is this going to pay off, or is this going to be something that pays off in Dune 2 whenever that gets made? And I was happy that those things paid off, and I just wish that Paul's arc, whatever that's going to end up being, was more closely tied to those two things.
I got to voice some frustration with like the reception. Maybe not the reception, but it's the fact that the uninitiated did not know this was a part one until they actually sat down, and they're all frustrated because of it. But
should have been marketed that way, you think?
Well, I think I would have marketed it the same way, because you can't market something with part one in the title. And now I'm seeing people saying,
Harry Potter did it.
But it was already the end of a series.
I'm seeing people saying, I'll see this when it's complete. I'll see this when it's a duology or a trilogy. And it's like, no, that's why they marketed it the way they did, because this is like proof of concept. This is supposed to be this is proof of concept. It's a trial run. You have to support this one. And that's
in order
why
to get the second one made.
They didn't say it's only the first part, because they knew people would skip it.
It is a 2.5 hour
proof of concept.
I was watching it and I was like, when is the movie going to start?
It starts at the end.
I think because Dune's slow. Dune is a pretty slow political story full of world building.
To your point, Dan, I was waiting to kind of inject this because just last night I listened to the Directors Guild podcast, a conversation between Villeneuve and Nolan after the screening of Dune. And Villeneuve talked about how, this is a passion project for him. He read Dune when he was younger, and he waited all these years. He was like, when is someone going to do it? When is someone going to do it? Fine, I'll do it myself, Thanos style. And he talks about kind of having that conversation with the producers, and where he at one point he did consider shooting both movies back to back, but he tells Nolan, it would have killed me. It would have killed me. Number one, because Blade Runner underperformed at the box office, they didn't want to throw that much money at him. And number two, he said it would have killed me, like filming on location in Jordan and like doing all that back to back. It would have been too much.
And Zendaya probably couldn't do that. I mean, she has...
What do you mean?
With Marvel contracts?
With Marvel contracts.
Oscar Isaac also with
Oscar Isaac is doing
Marvel contracts.
I mean, no, it's like a real thing.
Well, I mean, Oscar Isaac, this was the end of his character. He's not going to be in the...
He's not coming back, but
maybe
Villeneuve
he'll come
said
back
in
as
the
a ghost dad.
They don't do that in Dune.
They might do it
Dune
just
is,
for... Paul might be
is
dreaming.
a lot less campy, I gotta say, than I expected.
You don't think...
Growing up, knew Dune as like the worm shit
Yes.
sci-fi thing.
The butthole
That's what everyone
worm.
calls it. That's what everyone calls it. Well, spice is not even worm shit, by the way. Spice is the reason the worms are the way they... What's interesting about this world is that, like, it's... If insects were at the top of the food chain, and worms have been in this ecosystem for so long, where they're burrowing deeper into this like
massive,
extreme drug mind enhancing substance is, and now they've kind of inherited the earth.
By the way, another thing, of course, Lucas ripped the Sarlacc from the...
Of course, that is the Sarlacc. I mean, also...
it just can't move.
And the people have had their minds expand so much by spice that they've decided capitalism is not really something we need. We don't really need big industrial cities and stuff. We can just kind of fly under the radar and be one with the big insects who run this planet. And like it's kind of a cool like look at a sci-fi universe that's not really dystopian.
Until it gets dystopian.
Well, until those who have not been enlightened
until the white
by
people show
spice
up
come and plunder it.
I also think that you could probably say Justin that the Duncan Idaho character, I don't know how he is in the book, feels very Han Solo-y to me, at least. The
Momoa's character?
The swaggering.
He's kind of like a big brother.
I don't know. I mean, we can kind of just get into the elephant in the room. and Dan, you had some insight on this. Dune is like a white savior movie,
Sure.
and it's criticizing imperialism while at the same time falling into the trap of imperialism, which is like
where he is the
same.
All y'all need is a one white dude to leave the
and
bad
he's
guys.
Jesus.
And
He's
become,
literally. It would be one thing if he was
not even just that, Wes. And I'm only interrupting because
please
I wanted to
interrupt.
since it is obviously riffing on Christianity. I think there is an intention to naming him Paul. In the book of Acts, there was an old, basically Christian persecutor named Saul, who he roamed. This is like post Jesus, so Jesus had already been crucified. But Saul was basically like a mercenary. Like he would go around finding people who professed to be followers of Jesus, and he would have them executed, only to then himself have an epiphany and convert to Christianity and go from the name Saul to Paul. And so he becomes a leader among the people that he was previously assigned to kill. And I think Atreides is kind of following that line in a way, even though they're not necessarily there to kill the Fremen, but they're there to take their natural resource.
And also, the only reason I know this is because I read a Wikipedia article. Also, Atreides, it comes from Atreus, which is the family from Greek mythology that is cursed. There's a cursed family of Atreus.
Well, the Atreides are definitely cursed.
Yeah.
I mean, Arrakis is kind of a planet that's off limits to like. How else would you A-list enterprise families like that?
Bill Gates family.
You can see it written all over Oscar Isaac's face when Leto gets assigned Arrakis and he kind of looks dead inside because the Emperor is his cousin and he's obviously afraid that he'll be superseded.
So Stellan Skarsgård, he is the Emperor.
He's not the Emperor.
No, he's the Baron.
Was the Emperor in this?
No.
Okay, I was
The
making
Emperor
sure.
was who Dali was supposed to play. Salvatore Dali was supposed to be the Emperor.
Well, because the Baron calls Leto cousin. So when you said that, I got confused.
I think they're all related the way royal families are related.
Gotcha.
But I think the film tries to play both ends. Like the film doesn't try at all to not draw the comparison between people of the Middle East and the people of Arrakis. Which
I think that's actually a strength. Is the comparison?
I don't know how I feel about it. Genuinely, I don't know how I feel about it because of how strong they come with. Timothée Chalamet and his mom have arrived to save everyone.
Yeah.
And they really knocked that nail hard. And I think that could have been one plot line. I mean, I guess you can't because it's integral to the story of Dune.
Right.
But it feels like that's the one thing that's holding the film together that actually doesn't work for me. Like I was watching it and I was like, I can't believe we're doing this in 2021. Like I can't believe this is the plot we landed on. You could have subverted it. You could have, and I know the later books kind of subvert it by making Paul actual like him being the Messiah is actually a bad thing, and it's actually it's viewed as a negative thing. But when you cast Timothée Chalamet, who's such a well-known and heartthrobbed actor, in this major role, never mind that they didn't actually write him a role, but it doesn't matter. When you cast Timothée Chalamet,
he's like genetically engineered to be perfect.
Yeah, when you
the
cast
Bene
Timothée
Gesserit.
Chalamet, you know what you're doing, and it's
no,
just,
I mean the actual character
Yeah.
of Paul. They're like selective breeding by the Bene
it's-
Gesserit.
and
It's silly
Right,
stuff.
because she was only supposed to bear women children.
and then Zack Snyder stole that and put it into Man of Steel.
Oh yeah,
It's the same exact
Wait,
plot.
how so?
Remember when
and Krypton.
the Kryptonians don't have natural birth?
Right.
They just breed their babies.
That's why
in little-
Superman is Jesus. He was
I
unnaturally
not for
birthed.
nothing. I was thinking that the creation of some of the costumes looked a bit like those Kryptonian costumes.
Yeah,
in
they
Man of
pulled
Steel.
it out of the Warner Brothers closet. They were like,
Yeah, it's good. It's still good.
It's good.
I love the set design in this, and I also love the set design in the first Dune adaptation. I mean, they're both. Here's why I liked the aesthetic of the story of Dune. It's sci-fi, but it's very gothic.
It
Yes.
is.
You feel like you should be reading Dune by candlelight in like an old dark castle. Like
It's very
gothic.
dark fantasy. It's very dark fantasy, just with a sci-fi bend. It's much more. It feels much more like, pardon the reference, like Excalibur, and I don't mean in the sense that like it's silly like Excalibur, but in the terms of like dukes and kings and
Right.
the big bulky armor. You know what I mean? It feels much more in that world than it does with.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I see what you mean regarding the saviorism. Listen, like Danny was saying, if we want to see the story develop, obviously people should go support it and continue to talk about it, because that's how the studio is going to bankroll, another.
But Dune's not a story for everyone. Some people are going to see this completed and be like, that's stupid. There's a lot of people out there who are going to think the actual full story of Dune is dumb. And the only way you can really combat that is like really, I don't want to say pat it out, but like you have to take your time with it so that these beats don't feel as out of left field.
Well, let me ask you this, Dan. Do you think it would have been better served as a series?
I don't know. I have no idea.
It's already been a miniseries.
Oh, has it?
That's the second adaptation, yeah.
Oh, children.
I think Dune only really sings when it's like grandiose and epic and like you see it in IMAX. Because the universe is the draw. I mean, it is a brilliant world. The actual world of Dune is brilliant.
It is getting a TV show, a spinoff.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. I mean, listen, it might also be, this is maybe part of a large conversation, but like not every book needs to be adapted cinematically. Not every book even can. I mean, there's a reason.
Dune is a cult thing.
Yeah.
Dune is like a
the
like
book is
not mainstream at all.
400 500 pages?
800.
800. So, I mean, that's one book. So it's like, obviously there's always something that gets dropped when you're adapting because you can't put all that detail onto the screen necessarily because it's two different
mediums. You got an exposition dump, whereas a book has 800 pages to like.
It's allowed to do that.
As these things show up, we explain, okay, we have this special walk and like we ride the worms and shit.
Yeah,
and
yeah. No one wants to sit through that in a movie, necessarily. So that's why I think, if I want to see anybody do this, I want to see Denis do it because I love his movies and I think he has the style for it.
I think right now it's like unfair to review it, but like what else can we do? Yeah. Just say this was a cool proof of concept.
What I will say is good on Denis Villeneuve for getting Warner Brothers notoriously stingy studio
to bankroll
his art
crazy.
Project. Like this is such an artsy movie made the way that he clearly makes movies on such a big but like the tone, the scale, the way that it unfolds. Like Denis Villeneuve is not a blockbuster filmmaker.
What studio did the Lynch one?
Oh, that's a good question. But like the way they funded this weird movie that he wanted to make based on a book that he liked. You know what I mean? Like, what am I gonna get upset about that? Like, good for him.
Yeah. Definitely a victory for him in that sense.
And cast the entire Earth in it. You know?
Yeah.
Good for him. I think we're in Dune.
By the way, we might
Universal, by the way.
Universal.
Oh, okay. By the way, just to, I don't really have much more to say about this particular
Me neither.
entry, but I, some casting that I really enjoyed. I liked seeing Javier Bardem pop up. Yeah. He's always cool. Oh, yeah. Stephen McKinley Henderson. Really
always
nice to see
good.
him.
Always good to see him.
Yeah,
I love the moment where Javier Bardem spits on the table.
Yeah.
And, they take it as a compliment because water is so scarce.
Yeah. Even the concept of those rehydration suits.
Loved it.
That like take your sweat and tears and make them water.
And other stuff. Is it urine?
Probably.
I think so.
Like Iron Man says, there's a filtration system. You could drink that water. And whoever plays Dr. Keyes, I think is her name.
World building.
Yes, Sharon Duncan Brewster. Kynes, Dr. Kynes.
You're there for that world building.
I think so.
Really is the draw.
By the way, so Josh Brolin's dead, right? He's just assumed he's dead.
I don't think he's dead.
His character comes back.
I don't think. I don't think he's dead. I think if he was dead, he would.
He's surviving in the desert like the Fremen do.
Oh, okay.
And by the time Paul is like their leader, like years later, he
comes back.
Doesn't Idaho survive in the book?
Who are we talking about?
Jason Momoa.
Jason Momoa.
Oh no, Duncan.
Duncan,
yeah,
Idaho.
Duncan.
Yeah, doesn't he dies in the book?
Yeah, he does.
Okay.
Yeah, and then Josh Brolin is playing Gurney Halleck, which Gurney I thought that was like a military rank, but that's his name. This movie has an interesting mix of like regular names like Paul and Jessica, and that's
a criticism of sci-fi as a whole. Like sci-fi always has bizarre fucking
mixtures,
shit like that.
Yeah. Well, shall we rate it then, gents?
Yeah.
And devote some time to Mr. Jodorowsky.
Yeah.
Go ahead first, Wes.
I'll give it 3 asshole-looking sandworms out of 5.
You took mine.
It looks like an asshole.
It does look like a rectum.
It looks like a butthole.
But scary. Scary. I really like that scene where the one is coming after the mining tank.
Did you guys see, by the way, the pet that the Baron has, that like black ant looking
Dude,
thing?
what?
Okay, did you see that is a contortionist?
I
That is
assumed
a
it had to be a
human
performer.
contortionist doing
With, like, a
getting
rubber suit?
really low to well it's mocapped. But the actual person that they cast as that thing, there's videos of her doing that, and she looks like a spider. It's like this blonde lady, and she gets her face and like her stomach and stuff really low to the ground, and her arms and legs really come out to the and she like can do the jerky movements and stuff. Like she's fucking scary.
Dude, I forgot about. Thank you for bringing that nightmare back to the front of my brain, because I saw that and I was like, "What is that thing?" And you know, Stellan Skarsgård as the Baron, who of course is a prototypical Palpatine, but he's really cool. The actor's really cool, and the design of the character. That's
another one of those like insect things that's been enlightened by the spice. And but
oh really?
Become a formidable thing.
I thought he was just like a fat dude. Like
the thing on the ground?
Oh no, I'm talking about the Baron. Sorry,
the Baron. I thought we were talking about the pet.
Harkonnen's design is so good. It's my favorite thing.
I like that. Like that. I guess the spinal thing is the anti-gravity.
Yeah. Was it clear to you guys that he has like rocket shoes, and that's how he's floating?
Well, I thought it was the thing on his spine.
Also, Batista, who's
it's cool that like it's a dress that comes up like that. That is so like unnerving.
Yeah, Batista, I totally forgot
Batista,
about
who's like Villeneuve's guy.
Yeah,
he's like Villeneuve
and Brolin. But I was
every
waiting.
time Batista does an interview, he's always hyping up Villeneuve.
Yeah, I was waiting for Batista and Momoa to face off, and that doesn't happen. I guess that's why they do it in that.
Really cool.
But I think Batista is slowly coming up there on the best of the three wrestling actor guys.
Oh, for sure.
Obviously, yeah.
I think Cena has some.
I mean, Dwayne the Rock. It's just like a Disney.
No, but Cena has some really good comic timing in a way that I really like. But like Batista's an actor. Yeah.
Batista's doing stuff.
Batista comes out and has 3 scenes and is threatening. Like he is, and he transforms his look.
Yeah.
Like he's an actor.
He's willing to do stuff that the other two aren't.
Yeah.
Anyway, Dan,
and
what's
he's
your
made it very clear that he wants to be an actor. I think it's unfair to rate this right now. I'm not gonna
give it a half rating.
Fuck, man. I'm gonna be mad at myself for saying this, but I think right now it's like a 6.5 contortionist spider ladies out of like 10.
Hey, that's the same as my rating.
But like I do like the movie. It's just I'm not like biting at the bit to watch it.
It's also half of an arc.
Yeah.
The movie is half done.
I love the world. I love the world of Dune.
Yeah,
that's always going to be the pull.
Where are the lightsabers, Dan?
Fuck that shit. That shit is gay. Lightsabers are fucking gay.
I'll give it 4.5 of the 7 minutes Zendaya has on screen.
Wow.
And I like I said, if there is a part 2, I'll go see it. But I think like I'm prepared for exactly the outcome you said, Dan, where it's like I get to the end of the story and I'm like,
that's
right.
Dune.
That's Dune. That's really all it was.
Dune.
Yeah.
He was Jesus. Cool.
He was Jesus the whole time.
Maybe the real Jesus is the friends we made along the way.
Yeah.
And on that note, that's what the Holy Mountain is about. Honestly,
maybe the real companies that we scammed out of millions of dollars along the way.
Put your money into this fiery pit.
Yeah. So we'll take our second break
fucking Jodorowsky
and come back to talk about Oro.
Freaking is like, that movie you think is one of the greatest movies ever made. He like calls an intern in and he's like, hey, do you think Only God Forgives is one of the greatest movies ever made? And the intern's like, no. And he's like, exactly. God. Refith is a character.
We're talking about Jodorowsky's Dune, which obviously opens with winding Refn, the guy who did Drive, and not a lot of other memorable stuff.
He did Neon Demon, which is a good movie.
A movie I never saw, but he opens it basically mythologizing this adaptation of Dune by Alejandro Jodorowsky, who is a very heady, very psychedelic guy with a weird style that's kind of disgusting and beautiful at the same time, but ultimately manic, ultimately kind of self-obsessed, I guess, egocentric.
Most definitely.
He's always playing God,
or goddess figure. Yeah.
But this is a famous movie, like unmade movie, in that it united a lot of creative visionaries who went on to do more interesting stuff. Without Jodorowsky's Dune, Scott's Alien would not have turned out the way it did.
Right.
they imply that like a lot of like Spielberg movies kind of took from the unused concept art and storyboards and stuff.
Yeah, they suggest that the lineage is Alien, Blade Runner, Matrix. You know what I mean? And that like you look at the storyboards of some of the sword fighting, and George Lucas pulled that for Star Wars. And
Raiders of the Lost Ark, actually, that's pretty damning. The Jodorowsky storyboard coming out of the temple, all that stuff.
I don't know how are we going to do this. Are we going to talk about both of them in tandem to each other?
Yeah, Dan.
You're totally right. We skipped over. Okay, so I wanted for this episode for us to talk about the Holy Mountain. It kind of gives us a background, right?
To
Some
Jodorowsky's
context for
Dune.
who Jodorowsky is as a creative, and then talk about how he wanted like $50 billion to make a Dune movie,
an 8-hour Dune movie
that was all going to go towards Salvador Dali and Orson Welles, and like it's really a bizarre corner of
how long until that Jodorowsky storyboard gets released as a book?
I think it is.
Surprised it
I
has.
think it
No,
is.
I don't think it has been yet.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
I think.
Well,
it
he
is.
did it as comics.
Yeah,
That's what the documentary says. Is that he basically siphoned it off into comics with Mobius.
which my buddy Pat, who listens to this podcast, has. Like, he has the coffee table version of those comics.
Dune?
No, of the comics that he did with Mobius. But I don't think the actual storyboard has been. I just looked; it hasn't been released yet.
Yeah.
Which it will be, I'm sure, very
It
soon.
is so psychedelic, man. He is.
He did not read the book.
I know, but someone told him that it would be a good outlet to make an ayahuasca-fueled fucking just druggy experience.
Yeah.
I mean, and he was really committed. But Jodorowsky is a pretty eccentric guy. He has a background in theater and then went into filmmaking, basically having no concept of what it entails.
Just on a whim, really.
What cinematic storytelling as a medium really would do for him. His first movie is Fando and Louise, and that's just kind of like a surreal like art house Three Stooges thing that has pretty great visuals and stuff, but is just weird and kind of aimless.
You know,
his stuff is all kind of aimless.
You know, this is, I guess, the first episode that we'll be more talking about a filmmaker than a specific film they're making, because we're doing two. But the thing that hit me about Jodorowsky while watching The Holy Mountain, which is a movie that I think visually, like Dune, like Villeneuve's Dune, I was like visually knocked out by.
It has some of the best sets I've ever seen.
It has
very striking sets.
Striking sets. When people are stabbed, they like bleed like paint. I thought it was birds, and I loved, like, I was watching, I was like, I would rewatch this just for the visuals.
Yeah.
But I texted Dan about halfway through the movie, and I said, Dan, so does this movie ever come to a point? And Dan was like,
No.
Why does a movie need a point?
Why does it need a point?
And
I mean, his whole thing is just aimless, like ayahuasca fueled, like madness. And
I know.
For that,
I know.
it's awesome.
And
it
it makes watching the actual experience of watching the movie difficult.
Agonizing, in my opinion.
Go ahead. Wait. Justin, go ahead.
Here's the thing. I think that, first of all, the movie does have a point. It just takes a long time to get to it.
What is the point?
The point is that when he comes to the end of it and he's like zoom back camera and he's talking about how, basically that I guess we need to come together as a people. And that not only that film is transportive, but that the ideas we have about immortality or a purpose of life are fictional, and that we can create them ourselves, right? I guess is the idea. Sure. So like we can be the 9 immortals at the top of the mountain, and now we need to leave the movie and come down and make it real life. That comes at the last 2 minutes of the movie.
Okay.
And prior to that, it's like,
I've conquered the mountain horizontally.
it's crazy.
And then they're all like, hey, it's a movie.
When the movie began, like I only had a vague understanding of it, and I'm seeing this guy, and I'm like, okay, so they're doing like a white Jesus thing.
Well, there is. I mean, the whole commodification of like Christ's image and stuff. That is all very engaging.
In the first like 30 minutes,
and that's fascinating. You know what? My thing about this movie, Dan, is that there are.
I want to say I wrote a 20-page paper on this, and it was grueling. It was grueling. It was.
I'm sure
all
it could have
about,
been longer.
The production and I mean, there are crazy stories about the making of that was a cult. all the actors and crew, they lived communally with him. He was their cult leader, and
Makes
they
100%
dropped
sense.
ayahuasca together while they were making the movie every day.
You know what's funny about this, Dan, is I remember in the episode 1 of this season, you were talking about how you hate when people like see something creative and they're like, oh, it must have been on drugs. But in this case, they actually
in this
were.
case, yeah.
So but there are moments of this movie, Dan, where I'm watching it and I'm like, there's essentially a series of short films that are the second act of this film, where they go through all the members of the
Vignettes,
Zodiac. And the vignettes, and I was so fascinated by some of them, and some of them I had
Oh my god!
I had no interest in. They're like the one with
the planet where he feels the old woman's
I love it.
vagina.
It's so weird, so weird. But and then there's one that Justin texted me to warn me about, but I already passed it. Where
the Saturn
boys
one.
are getting their testicles pulled off.
Right.
I thought that was so fascinating. And then there were ones that I just didn't give a fuck about. Like I was just like, whatever.
He
Like,
is
let's
so
move on.
Crazy. He is such a manic.
Also
fucking person.
loves himself just an ass naked woman.
And man,
dude, just
there
naked
was a scene.
peoples.
I almost texted
George
y'all.
Harrison, one of the members of the Beatles,
I know.
was supposed to be the main character, and Jodorowsky told him, "We will see your asshole in this movie." And he was
Exactly
like,
what I was about to
and he
talk
was like,
about.
"Can we cut that? Can we maybe not do that?" And he was like, "No, this is art. This is my art. We will not be cutting anything." He could have had one of the Beatles as the star of the Holy Mountain, but he had to show his asshole. Jodorowsky could not bend on showing his asshole, and so now. Fucking George Harrison is not the. Could you imagine how crazy that would be if one of the Beatles was the star of this movie?
It may have kept the Beatles together. They might still be together right now.
John Lennon was a huge Jodorowsky.
Yeah.
John Lennon
And
El
Yoko
Topo.
Ono put the money for
They
it.
loved El
Can you
Topo.
imagine them going to set and putting their hands on their hips
And them all
being
being
like,
high on ayahuasca and rolling around.
Everything looks good here.
they're like, this is very good.
Some
Let's
of the
keep
set
moving.
design is crazy. It's all inspired by like tarot cards and
I
the
know.
alchemists. I'm gonna say it's a temple.
It looks like a
the,
temple
The
to me.
Christ stand-in.
Oh, the tower.
cleanse.
Yeah.
Yeah, he goes into a temple, and I'm not talking about the actually.
By
have
the
a,
way, when they have like 50 Jesuses, and
Right.
he's among the Jesus.
That's where the
all about the
commodification part,
Yeah,
really
I
comes
thought
to
that
light.
was super interesting.
Yeah.
I thought that was so
I
funny.
have the most striking set in the whole thing is probably the rainbow hallway leading up to the Alchemist. I have a poster for the Holy Mountain in my room.
Of course you do.
I do, and that's the shot. On
They
the
put
poster.
the score for the film has that image on the vinyl cover. I
Yeah,
think. Which is
But when he actually goes and is being he's not getting trained by the alchemist. He's being
chastened, kind of, and like disciplined.
Yeah,
you know.
that's all based on tarot cards.
Oh, okay.
Like all the shots in that sequence, like you'll notice they're positioned strangely with like daggers and animals and things like that. And Jodorowsky was a tarot reader.
Okay.
So his whole thing was like a tarot card aesthetic. And,
Right.
when you actually put those shots, like in my paper, I used a bunch of that. Like those shots next to actual tarot cards, you can see like where the compositions and stuff are coming from. It's very interesting. He's a very interesting filmmaker.
He's an interesting filmmaker, and I'm sure someone has unpacked how he feels about women at some point. Not to, I don't even feel like I have the range for that, but there are moments.
I think searching for meaning kind of ruins him.
No, I don't even mean that. I mean like just the way he talks about. I mean, we're going between these two things.
Oh,
the way he talks about Dune,
Yeah.
and the fact that you have to trigger warning, you have to like rape Frank Herbert to get Dune.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you
he
talking
says
about?
when you marry a woman, you can't respect her. You have to take her. You have to rape her in order to.
And it's like, dude, a terrible analogy.
Terrible way to think about it.
And B, you didn't read the book. What do you mean?
But also, the whole point of Dune is that like you don't need to be living in like a green wonderland. You can make it work.
You can live off the
wherever
minimal.
you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And his whole thing was Dune becomes like a big green planet.
Right.
It's like a big rainforest
I mean,
at the end of the Jodorowsky treatment.
Yeah, I think like his Dune would have been pretty incomprehensible, right?
Yeah.
if
No, it would have been the Holy Mountain.
It also would have. It also would have.
You have to be high to get anything out of
In
it.
all seriousness, though, it would have also changed science fiction.
No, absolutely.
It would,
No,
I
totally.
mean, science fiction in the last 50 years would have been completely different.
yeah.
It would have. We probably wouldn't have gotten Star Wars, at least not the way we gotten it. Dune might actually be what people are referencing. The way that when people reference visually Star Wars and they reference visually Alien.
Star Wars is very digestible, and Jodorowsky's
but
Dune
not.
would
Have you read
not
about
that.
Dan? You need to read. I'll send it to you. There's a great cultural history that was written a couple of years ago about the creation of Star Wars, and the first half is literally just the making of the original trilogy. And if you read, and I think IDW just did a comic book treatment of it. If you read Lucas's original scripts for Star Wars, they're incomprehensible. They are like Dune.
I believe it.
They're it's like what do you? The mythology doesn't make any sense.
But Lucas could be reined in, and Jodorowsky's one of
That's
those
probably true.
artists
Who can't be.
dips out as soon as you try and rein
He
it in.
won't
That's very
compromise at all.
You don't think Jodorowsky's going to make Guardians of the Galaxy 4?
No.
I think they were penning him for the next Shang-Chi, though. So
Oh yeah.
We
That
can
sounds
hope.
good. That sounds good.
He'd be interesting for a Doctor Strange movie. That's right up his alley.
He would probably make a great Doctor Strange.
he doesn't make movies.
No, he
These-
doesn't.
These are not movies.
These are exhibits. These are
Yes,
he's
yeah.
filming like
That's a great
museum
word for
exhibits. I think
That's actually a really good way to.
that's how. That's like you know. I was just looking up some of the financial information. So he filmed this on a budget of $750,000 in 1973, which for inflation is something around $4 million.
Yeah.
And he made on a box office reissue is what Wikipedia has 95,000.
This is a midnight favorite as far as like midnight movies go. This is always
But
on
somehow-
IFC, Quad. This is in all the art house. What do you call that? Revival houses.
Yeah.
The Holy Mountain is very popular.
But,
so
but
is El Topo.
somehow
El Topo.
this is the movie
El
that
Topo's more of a movie than this one.
this is the movie that convinced that producer to say, "I'll give you money to make anything you want."
because you know what it is, Justin. It's that
It holds your attention. I mean, maybe not for everybody, but for me, I'm like, this is so fucking weird. Like, it absolutely holds my attention.
It's
when I
like
watch
seeing.
this.
I think I enjoyed it more than you, Justin. But it's like there are moments where I was definitely like, okay, let's move this along. But there are moments where I'm watching the movie and I'm like, this is like looking at a pink horse. Like I've never seen a pink horse before. Pink horse is like tap dancing down the street.
There is
and I'm like,
nothing
what is
like a
going
Jodorowsky
on?
movie.
I gotta follow that horse. You know what I mean?
Yeah, fair enough.
But-
I felt like I was being screamed at for 2 hours.
That's fair.
But that's a good point. It is like I can see it being this total novelty, especially in the early 1970s, that would attract an eccentric producer to be like, "I like your style."
Exactly.
Like, what do you want to do?
I wish that the Jodorowsky approach was like more popular. Like, I think it's way more interesting than like
you want
the
to get
vast
people high
majority.
on party drugs
Fuck
and then
yeah.
film a movie?
Well,
I'm not even talking about that.
You mean like climax?
I mean more in that a movie can be a smorgasbord of weird ideas and approaches that are
No.
kind of blended together into something.
I mean, Wes
totally
Anderson does
unique.
that.
No, he doesn't. No, he does
Well,
not. He
here's
absolutely does not.
here's where I'm going to say the thing that I don't know if Dan will be upset about. What I texted you is that the only movie that I could even remotely like
Wes
relate
Anderson's
this
stuff
to,
is digestible.
yeah, I think, but is Mother. I was thinking about Mother while I was watching this, and
I want you guys to know that if you ever bring Mother on this show, that will be my last show here.
I understand. I'm not saying I'm a fan of Mother, but obviously
I
there's
don't
the
hate that movie.
there's the oh okay. I guess I got it backwards. I thought you didn't like it at all.
I think it's like fine. I hated the way what's that guy's name?
Aronofsky.
I hated the way
the
Aronofsky
director.
kept doing interviews and like explaining the shit out of it.
Yeah.
Like, dude, let people figure
Mother
it out
is
on
kind of
their
like
own.
a man getting onto like on 16 millimeter film with an open Bible and just kind of masturbating into the Bible for 2.5 hours, and then
Yes.
at the end it starts over again.
This is like a brief like review of Mother, I guess, but like if a real artist does not think his audience is stupid, he doesn't
Sure.
need to explain the
Yeah.
movie at every
Sure,
chance
yeah.
he gets. I mean,
Yeah.
be a Chad, dude. Be David Lynch. Oh, they're smart enough.
The
they'll
movie
figure
does
it
the
out.
talking, but
Yeah.
but the reason it reminded me is not only because of the pseudo Christian connection, but also like specifically that sequence after Mother bears the child and then everything in the house starts going crazy, like
Surrealist nightmare.
yeah, several sequences in this reminded me of that. And of course, the stuff with the frogs and the lizards, like
It's maybe the most surreal movie ever made.
that's
I can't,
possible.
I can't think of anything more surreal than Holy Mountain.
You know that all the animals on this set were abused.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, I felt so bad. I texted Dan when the frogs got the blood on them.
Every actor was a
I felt so bad.
Yeah.
No, but specifically the frogs when they explode
didn't know
and they
what was
fly away.
happening.
I was like, oh no.
Not the frogs, man. I mean, it's there's this fascination with like all these different kinds of animals in a sort of like Edenic kind of way, I guess.
Disgusting imagery that Jodorowsky is like trying to convince you is beautiful, like the guy taking his glass eyeball out and giving it to the child prostitute.
Yeah,
like that scene has this atmosphere of like beauty.
There's
so disgusting.
Yeah, there's a mysticism to it. Also, can we talk about this chimpanzee who's probably the best actor in the movie?
Dude.
How did they get this chimpanzee to sit in lotus position?
Just keeps showing up in the background of shots.
I was like, this chimpanzee must have killed at least one actor.
Yeah,
he ripped some faces.
Do you guys remember? God forgive me. We can cut this out if you want. Do you guys remember that poor woman?
Yes,
got her face ripped off by that chimp.
She was fucking with the chimp.
Dan, the chimp ripped her face off.
She was fucking with it.
But wasn't it like it's the chimp's teacher, like its ASL teacher? That's what I remember.
I think she was the carer, but like it came out that she was like pushing the chimp.
And it took 10 shots to take the chimp down.
It's a wild animal.
Yeah,
and then that chimp went on to star in Holy Mountain.
Jodorowsky was like, "You are my spiritual warrior."
Yeah,
spiritual warriors that rip faces off the wind.
I mean, it is like, you know, like you said, his Dune would have been the Holy Mountain, but literally when you're watching the documentary, the way that he's describing going about finding the crew is the exact process of Holy Mountain.
They did in Holy Mountain.
Yeah, he's collecting these people and he's making
they were
them
living together like Dan O'Bannon and
Mobius, yeah.
They were all living together like the cast and crew of Holy Mountain. They were living communally. So every time he made a movie, and imagine if that kind of set a precedent to where an auteur director would have to like house and feed like everyone who's working on the movie for like imagine if Wes, if like you were my DP on something, for example, and I paid your rent for like 2 years.
I would love it.
Because we were working.
Because we were working
that was just
on
what you had to do.
Because we
as
were working
the
on the Batman 3 together.
Yeah,
you know.
And if his Dune got made and people liked it, I mean, I don't know how like that would have been the precedent.
But you know what? You're absolutely correct. It's actually a really fun thought exercise to think through what would have happened and not happened if his Dune had hit. Because if his Dune had hit,
there's totally a parallel universe.
There's a parallel universe where science fiction. I know we said it before, but genre filmmaking is different. Yeah. Like we don't think about it, but you take George Lucas out and swap him for someone else. Yeah. Genre filmmaking changes. Mm-hmm. Everything is Star Wars. Like the MCU is Star Wars.
Yeah.
So imagine if you just you know,
Can
butterfly
you imagine,
effects.
like a Jodorowsky inspired MCU. I mean, it'd be more
Doctor Strange would be the
dynamic for sure.
Well, genre stuff would have this precedent that like you have to be on mind altering substances.
Yeah,
and like make no mistake, I mean, genre enthusiasts, like it's fun to get drunk and watch horror movies, but like imagine if the recommended viewing method for an MCU movie was like imagine if they handed out
little packets of DMT.
In baggies when you bought your ticket at the theater. Like, just
there would be a lot of
great
deaths in
exercise.
the 90s when everything got over,
sure.
And then there'd be a movement that was reacting against that.
I like to think that you know, and I know neither of you maybe watch this series that religiously, so I'm going to go left a bit. But there was a What If episode where they talk about
I watched like 5 or 6 of those.
I watched the Doctor Strange episode where they talk about absolute points in time that can't be changed. Mm-hmm. I like to think that like the Spawn movie was an absolute point.
I was about to say that like High Life wouldn't have changed. Claire Denis is going to make High Life.
Like you go to the theaters in the 90s. Spawn is still pretty psychedelic in its own right.
It would have been interesting. I mean, it's
a universe where Jodorowsky is a household name.
It would have been interesting. I mean, it's like a fool's errand, but it's more fun than the remake game. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, what I will say about
his designs, I mean, you can totally see that they are Jodorowsky inspired designs.
Dude.
I mean, the ship with the purple and yellow like zebra, and you can kind of justify it in your mind as, well, maybe that's how if you see something in deep space, you don't mistake it for like a crater or whatever. You know that that's another commercial airship because it has this intricate, crazy design. Like no other sci-fi has ships with designs like that, and it makes sense. The ships in space have crazy, intricate designs.
It would have to
be noticeable.
You know that they're pulling stuff from the Jodorowsky, if no other reason, but that the documentary is so famous now, because the music choice in the first trailer is taken from the folks that Jodorowsky wanted to score. The scene where Paul's getting yanked onto the ship by Brolin is a Mobius drawing.
Yes.
I do love the idea. I mean, they mentioned this briefly, but it was such a great idea that each planet, like Caladan and Arrakis, like Arrakis would have been, I think, Pink Floyd.
Yeah,
Caliban
scoring each planet differently.
And each band has like
Yeah.
another band in maybe
That would have been
stoner rock
so
and like
expensive.
hair metal. No, absolutely. But the David Lynch one is scored entirely by Toto,
That's
the
true.
band Toto. So
That's
he
it.
kind of
Africa.
ran with that idea. Yeah.
Africa.
Well, that's a song. but yeah.
It's my only reference for Toto.
I think that's like, imagine making an epic and every location in your epic is scored by another like band.
Yeah.
Like, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the last thing I'll say, and I'm not wrapping this up because Succession starts soon, but that certainly is part of it.
Yeah, it's
Imagine if Jodorowsky had directed an episode of Succession,
Dude.
But I really do like. I always say this, even if I don't love the movie, which I think I really did like Holy Mountain.
I think I like it too. I think I like all of his. I mean, I own all of his movies. They're fucking interesting.
I think if you make a movie that's interesting, that's such. You know how many movies right
Are
now
not
that we
interesting.
talk about for 20 minutes,
Yeah.
and we're like, I never think about it again.
I come back to Holy Mountain more than I thought I would, because the first time I watched it, I was like, I will never watch this.
It's how I feel about Suspiria, the original one.
yeah.
And when I first saw it, I was like, what is this movie?
I've always loved the original Suspiria. I just have to say
There's not like a week that goes by that I'm not at least thinking about something about Suspiria.
I love Argento's Suspiria.
Dude, and
I could watch that movie.
I'll
all
be
day.
honest, I don't even remember watching Kong versus Godzilla this year.
not at all.
But I will remember watching Holy Mountain.
I
You know what I mean?
just remember wanting to leave the theater in Shang-Chi when they're singing karaoke.
Yeah.
Like
Does that happen in Shang-Chi? I haven't
First 20
watched it.
minutes.
Yeah. They're like, we don't want to grow up. We want to sing karaoke all day. And that's what they did.
Interesting.
And then they ride dragons at the end, I think. I don't remember.
That sounds like Dragon
I don't
Tales.
remember.
I will not be watching Shang-Chi.
It's fine. You just you look it
We'll
up.
we'll be
It
back
is
next month
really
with Eternals,
boring.
maybe.
You'll
I'm
be
sure-
back.
I'll be here by myself doing Eternals.
about it.
I'll be like, so guys, the post-credit scene, which is the only thing you guys care about.
I'll say this, and I think we won't do a rating for Jodorowsky's Dune because we were kind of just talking about. I think maybe for Holy Mountain is more appropriate to do our ratings, but I think as far as a documentary, it's pretty interesting, and I also think that it does do a good job. At least for me, I did feel a little bad for Jodorowsky, which I think is part of the point of the filmmakers. They wanted you to.
I mean, in his age that he is now, he's still holding on to it. Like all these years.
Yeah.
it's
Well,
kind
you know
of
what was interesting? They said something. I think it was his son,
I
maybe.
felt bad for Dan O'Bannon.
Yeah.
Who worked on Alien, who pens the screenplay. Jodorowsky got him to sell all of his
All of his
belongings
stuff and
and
come
move
to-
to Paris. And then one day he was like,
It's
never
over.
mind.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Not doing it after all.
but I think like I think it was whatever Crocodile Dundee dude was giving an interview in that documentary, but he was saying like when you have a story that's so big like that, it can't stay in your head. You need to get it out somehow. And I think that's really like we see that a lot, and I'm sure we know that as creatives, just independently, like we might have been nursing something for years, and it's just like if I could find a way to
If you can find the
exercise
to get that
this
out there.
from within me,
and it's cooking in you.
This
Yeah.
feeling.
yeah. And so I mean, hey, he got to produce some. He got back with his producer buddy Michel Seydoux.
Yeah, they worked on something recently.
And-
Endless Poetry.
Yeah, and it premiered at Venice Film Festival, I think. And it's
Another interesting Jodorowsky one is Santa Sangre, which is a horror film.
the dude's 92.
Yeah.
He's a
Yeah.
tank.
And he looks
He's
good
out
for
there.
90.
Yeah, he's a tank.
say so.
He's moving through it. So, yeah, I mean, I guess I'm ready to give Holy Mountain a rating. Wes, do you want to start again?
Yeah. Let's see. We always forget our ratings right before we have to do the rating. So it's Immortal,
Immortal,
Yeah.
Reanimate.
Should I go? I
You
think
go
it's
first.
you.
This is your selection, yeah.
There's nothing like it,
Mhm.
and I mean, for a movie that is so like powerful within like cult circles, like I can't tell you how many times I've had conversations with like jaded film people who, as soon as you bring up Jodorowsky, like they have so much to say, and I think that's kind of a testament to art being unapproachable and non-digestible, and like that being what lasts, that being the everlasting approach. So I mean, just going off of that, I mean, superseding like how I personally feel about the movie, which I do like it, I'd probably give it a legendary. It is a legendary or
Immortal. Yeah.
It is kind of immortal in those circles, and like while you're watching it, it feels so indescribable, like in the way that the most provocative art is.
For sure.
So that's Immortal for me.
Immortal. That's a really good reason to do Immortal too. I think I'll do a soft Reanimate. I'll do a real Reanimate. I think, I don't know. It's a really interesting movie. I don't know if I like all of it, which is not the point.
I definitely don't like all of it.
It's not the point of it, but it does a really good job of like reordering what we even think about. Modern film criticism sucks because it's essentially just adding and subtracting points on a board and not really having any experience with the movie, which sounds pretentious, but is the truth.
No,
like
but that is absolutely true. Like whenever I see these reactionary, like as soon as someone walked out of the theater, they're already posting about it. Like it's always adding and subtracting.
And that.
I didn't like this character. I did like the imagery,
and it's the result. Not to get into like
points.
and it's the result of CinemaSins and YouTube.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in some ways, that's been great.
Is.
The democratizing of film criticism.
Yeah.
But in some ways, it's been like, dude, it's an experience, and I feel like I had a weird and wild experience.
And that was the point.
And that's the point. So I'm gonna go ahead and reanimate it.
Oh,
go ahead, Justin.
No.
Here we go.
No,
we just talked about how much we love film, and you're gonna be like, it's a solid.
No,
I was killed to get Zach on this fucking episode, man.
I came here ready to bury this thing,
Sure.
but I had a feeling it would happen because talking to my friends who love film makes me feel better about film. I'm somewhere in between Embalm and Reanimate.
That's cool.
I think for me, I don't know if I would show this to someone, which is sometimes like a deciding factor for me. Like, if I like a movie so much that I want to watch it again with somebody.
Sometimes I'll recommend something to someone because I know that it'll shake them up.
It'll mess with them. Yeah. I mean, I think for this, it's like obviously there's beautiful visuals
and disgusting visuals. In kind of a spiral where they blend in.
Exactly. And I think it can't just be the visuals alone, right? Because I could just look up stills on Google and be like, that's a cool shot from that movie. Yeah. So I think that's part of why maybe I'm leaning more towards Embalm, because I don't know, like as a film, what would bring me back to it. But there is a lot of, there are some interesting sequences, some interesting ideas. I think that whole factory thing with the harem of women.
So weird.
That was when I was like, oh, this movie's like it's kind of interesting. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like I sat forward for that, and then I realized
I have so many wives and I sleep with them only on working hours.
I realized he was going to do that for everybody, and I was like, I sat back again. But yeah, I think like definitely what y'all said is crucial. That we watch so many movies all the time that are just gray. And not even visually, but just like emotionally and mentally, they don't do anything for you.
Who right now in the field working is doing Jodorowsky?
Not many people.
We have a million guys who are trying to be Wes Anderson. We have a million copycat Tarantinos. We have a million copycat
We have a million
Lynches.
Jordan Peels.
Yeah, yes, and growing and counting. But I think like at the end of the day, this is what I hope our show is about, and what it does for listeners and even for us is like connecting movies that don't really get the spotlight to movies that are getting the spotlight, even if they aren't necessarily that similar, although there's a lot of psycho-religious stuff going on between both these movies.
There's a lot of Jesus
in
both of these movies.
But that's what I always want our conversations to be conversations, not to be ultimately just about like
here's good film,
nitpicking necessarily, because
that's what I hate about film criticism. My favorite film critic was always Roger Ebert, and he would kind of put in these personal touches, like he would connect a film to the experience of like riding a bike for the first time. He always had these really beautiful reactions that kind of humanized the act of critiquing a movie.
Exactly.
And that's what I
also
want us to do.
I was about to like, I'm right on your tail, Dan, in that way, because I feel like someone explained film criticism as it's not actually telling you whether or not to watch the movie.
No,
it's framing which is we're early in this thing, and hopefully we've begun to do that, and we'll do it better later. But like, it's just framing the movie. Actually, it's saying this is the reaction the movie had for me, and this is the context of the movie that you need, and this is what it reminds me of, and here is what it is. It's not CinemaSins.
And recognizing, by the way,
film criticism can be a mood piece, like a movie is a mood piece.
Yeah. I mean, I've certainly written some critiques that have blurred the lines and haven't been exact. Once you realize there's no way to be unbiased, we all approach something with our own preconceived
there's no
preconceptions.
objective good or bad. That doesn't exist.
You know what the most depressing thing I heard, maybe this can be the final thing we say on this episode, is the Russo brothers went on Screen Junkies and said that they have written the way they write scripts. Their process is to make it honest trailers proof.
Oh God!
They did say that.
And when I
remember
heard that, I was like, "What a boring way to make movies!" Like, what
You're two grown men.
Yeah, like first of all, honest trailers. No one watches honest trailers, but nerds.
I haven't watched it in a while.
And also, like, dude, who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares? You're making a movie. And if it's messy in some places or like the edges are sand, who cares?
But like,
it doesn't matter.
It's something to be comedy proof. Like you're afraid to do anything.
Yeah, dude.
Because like any choice you can make, someone can make a joke about.
Dude.
Of course.
And then you can make a joke about it being boring, like your movie being one
I love,
color.
like I said, like look,
is
I love Villeneuve, and I just kind of pooped on Dune a little bit. A small poop, not a big one. But
I think Dune will grow in estimation with audiences. The
No
more,
matter
the more
what,
time
it's not
happens.
going to be for everybody.
No, but I think over time it'll. I mean, people are already. It's already dividing audiences, which is a good sign, I think. But I think it's a tough little movie, and I think like as people,
scrappy film,
and as people, a scrappy film. But I think as people watch it, they'll start to develop more in-depth opinions.
Well, that'll do it for this episode. And by the time you're hearing it, we're going to be right back because on Halloween, we're dropping
Halloween
something
Spooktacular
special for
We're
you.
going to be ripping on Rob Zombie, David Gordon Green, you name it.
John Carpenter, we're gonna bully him.
Yeah, I'm going to be fucking ripping Carpenter. I hate that fucking guy.
We love y'all very much. Check out the back catalog when you can. Rate, review the show, and consider buying some of our merch because it's coming out real nice.
Yes, it is.
Until next time, we were movie watchers.
Stop
We
watching
love you.
movies. Stop watching movies.